Hey, we're streaming.
Good morning, everyone.
Thank you.
Some folks are coming in from the outside, but we're going to begin. We're going to begin this morning with a brief holiday season commercial message. I'm going to ask. Thanks a lot. So ask her to step over to my. We're going to begin this morning with a brief holiday season.
Everybody should know about to give me a mic. And thank you. I promised you every 1 minute. I wanted to ask. If you haven't read this, we have flyers, everything you want to know about the bazaar, but we're afraid to ask. This is a very risque production, and I want you to be sure that you read everything so that you can see how you can be part of the bazaar. First thing, how can you be part? You can volunteer to help. There is a sign-up sheet out in the foyer. And if you don't sign up, we'll probably be giving you a call or email you because we really do need everybody to work. And it is so much fun. Right, Cynthia? What's the most fun, Cynthia? Cleaning up is the most fun. Pictures from last year. And I think Riz Tunny would attest that cleanup is awesome. Sorting jewelry is really good too. New this year, Priscilla, what's new this year? We're having a table with themed baskets. And we're going to complete. So this one was done by Chris Harder. And we're asking folks if you would like to create a themed basket, the theme of your choice. This one is olive oil, and it looks delicious. I thought it was wine the other day when I saw it. I said I would have did on the one with a half bottle of wine, but it's olive oil. But we have really good baskets. What are the baskets we have so far?
We have birds, we have dogs, we have tea, we have an Italian, we have wine, but we're looking for many more. We have about 15 so far promised to us, but I certainly could use a lot more. So think of your own theme and just bring us the contents, and we will be happy to put it together and give it a little pizzazz with bows and stuff.
Yeah, we'll do all the work. You do the shopping, and Priscilla and Chris Harder will do the work. But we need all of your things by
October 10th, so that we have time to put it all together. So think of something, let us know, bring your stuff to Debbie, and she will put it in the spare office, and I will come and pick it up, and Chris and I will put it all together.
right. Thank you. This is my stewardship pitch too that I did last year. We are looking for cookies. Last year, does anybody remember how many cookies we asked for?
1,000.
1,000. How many did we get? 1,500. So we're asking, the challenge again this year is for cookies. And if you think about it, it doesn't matter how many you make. If you make 1 dozen, we put that all together. It's like giving $1. Pledge $1. That goes into the big pool right now. So think about what you can do. We want to do what's easier for you, but we really want everybody to contribute. The other big thing, and I've made 3, and I'm very excited about pies. So if you're a pie maker and you want to make a pie, make your pie, bring it in and put it in this freezer, or your cookies in this freezer, and either Chris Harder or I will put them downstairs. Next week, we'll have something about when you do all this. Okay, thanks, bye.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you to all who are working so joyfully together to support our bazaar, Saturday, November 4th, which it seems odd because it's only just a month away. So we've been working on this for some months already. So we're going to turn our attention now to looking at this past summer and then looking ahead with a specific focus on our Food for Kids ministry. And I will tell you, just as someone who a year ago was still an outsider to your parish, we're gonna wait for that to apply. So, Jesus. There we go. Yeah, just about a year ago, when I was still an outsider to your parish, I only knew about Food for Kids by reputation. And one of the first things I read about the Food for Kids ministry in your parish profile that struck me deeply was its scale. I was astounded that this parish on Cape could feed that many children week after week in the summer months. So I'm no longer an observer of Food for Kids. I did spend some time with peanut butter, well, not peanut butter, sun butter and jelly sandwiches this summer. And being around and watching this team in action was something that was deeply inspiring to me. And it was the kingdom of God at work here on our campus. So I want to recognize two people who are here with us. As usual, she's head down in the computer making something happen, and that's Brenda Ridgeway. Stand out to the right and back. Brenda is responsible for everyone who's joining us via Zoom right now, and I think we'll be able to field questions from those of you who are watching us on Zoom after the formal presentation itself. And then to my left, and will be leading us, will be praying us in, and then leading us through this presentation is the Reverend Ann Taylor, who does a lot of work behind the scenes on Food for Kids. There's always the bread and peanut butter and sliced meat and packing and coolers, picking up and driving the highly visible elements of this. But there's also everything that we don't see typically, which has to do with grants, which has to do with funding and requirements and safety protocols and the rest of that. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague in the ministry, Ann Taylor. Thank you, Ann.
I'm gonna start by, Patrick said, bring us in, short, brief, but trying to highlight that the focus of this morning is, yes, an awareness of exactly how things went this month, but also looking towards the future. And what does that mean for the ministry here at Holy Spirit? So let us pray. Help us, Lord, to look at the past and present so that we may better plan for the future and to face our strengths and weaknesses with honesty and wisdom. Help us to be open to your guidance as we discuss and plan for the future. And grant us both generous imagination and practical plan. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen. How our technology works today. I'm going to read through the vision statement. It's on a lot of what we do. We updated it about 9 months ago, a year ago, to focus more on exactly what we do and encompass both the fact that we not only give away free food, yes, we do free books, and those are equally important and probably even more popular with the kids. The Food for Kids works to alleviate childhood hunger and promote literacy on the lower outer Cape.
by bringing together the Church of the Holy Spirit and local communities to provide free meals and free books for children and teens in the summer when schools are out. Drawn, I believe, by Ruth as a concept of Feed My Lamb in John 21. So let's begin with this past summer. As our wonderful graphic here from the Kids Gulf Lake Recreation Program shows, a huge thank you. It was a fantastic summer. The most meals ever for us. Over 43, almost 44,000 meals served first. Doesn't count some of the seconds we served. 1,800 breakfasts, more than 22,000 snacks, more than 19,000 lunches. The most volunteers ever, 132 and counting. Not everybody signs up physically with names. A lot of people show up. 30% of the ones we know about by name were new this summer to us. About a third were members of the Holy Spirit. At least 750 hours prepping and packing meals. Probably more than 7,500 miles driven back and forth to sites, and a fantastic staff. Returning Anne-Marie, Laura, and Matt. Anne-Marie's been with us, I think, 7 years as an employee, started out as a volunteer. Laura's been with us 6 years as an employee, also started out as a volunteer. We welcome Ray and Lizzie. Ray and Lizzie made a big transition this year. They used to be regular volunteers. And this year we brought them on staff to finally compensate them for the hard work that they do. Matt and Chris are site supervisors. Matt is in Chatham. Matt's been with us about 3 years. And Chris was new this year. Really lovely gentleman who joined us and did a lot more than just site supervise. Those of you who were here to help prepare know that the one thing we were missing was a kitchen manager. Kind of a critical piece in the morning. What's not included in those volunteer numbers in terms of hours is what Brenda Ridgway contributed, trying to get the kitchen up and going, and kind of on last notice, but you're it, Brenda. And she had the help of Jack and Allison from our steering committee, but it was really on Brenda's shoulders to make sure that it was going to happen. And as I said, those hours are not included in the above. So what does it look like over the 11-year history of food? We've grown a lot in 11 years. You look down here, I'll see if I can get my mask for you. And oh, here it is. So this is where we were in 2013 when we first started out. Some sites, not as many, some towns, not all of them yet, just getting off the ground, getting some help from Episcopal City Mission financially to get going. And building it over the next several years. And we're already up significantly higher both on snacks and lunch. Snacks, especially because we've started to provide a second snack for those sites that are really doing their full job of providing childcare in the summer and going into the afternoon. So I'm going to stop here. If you don't mind, I'm going to leave the mask off. So snacks, for the first time, have really surpassed lunches. But it's not just about the meals that have grown. Ruth's looking up and towards the future. I don't know if Ruth foresaw where we'd be today. My guess is in some ways she did, because she gets it. And she's tried to impart on all of us that same understanding of the need and the reality here on Cape Cod. But since those early years, we now hire more staff. That was one of the main goals when Brenda and I came into the role as directors 3 years after Ruth started. Because we knew we didn't want to try to do everything Ruth was doing. Because Ruth was pretty much doing everything. And we drive by, we could see Ruth sitting at the kitchen, center island in the kitchen, at 4 o'clock, at 4:30, 5 o'clock. And so Brenda and I started hiring some staff. And that's when Laura and that's when Anne Marie came on board. We recruit a lot more volunteers, reaching outside of the church to do that. We do a lot more communication, not only just on constant contact, but through our online sites, through social media. We're doing more. We apply for a lot more grants. 15 at least that we apply for every year. We're more reliant on engaging the larger community. As I mentioned, we're reaching far outside Holy Spirit for volunteers, staff, financial support. We're more dependent on technology and data analytics to understand what we're doing, how we're doing, and also to write a convincing story when we write grants. Being able to analyze and look at the data for that particular grant. That grant may be coming out of Brewster or Provincetown or out of the Cape or out of the state. They all have a different sense of what's important and what they want to look for. We're also dealing with more events beyond our control. The end of the summer of 2019, Brenda and I thought we had it nailed. And then COVID hit. And it was a completely new ballgame for certainly that first summer, 2020, when we partnered with Nauset Schools. But it hasn't settled down to normal even yet. So we deal with events like that, and certainly have inflation that we're dealing with. We're dealing with product shortages. We're certainly dealing with labor shortages. And we're dealing with politics. Every time the administration changes, the rules at the USDA change. And I've got to tell you, food, families, kids, real hot buttons, emotional buttons politicians know that they can push on. And there are those who want to reduce help, there are those who want to increase help, and there's just a lot of non-negotiation going back and forth on those points. And it certainly is true today. We manage a much bigger budget. We're up to $176,000 this year, could be in the $200,000 range next year. A little bit of that is due to inflation, but a lot of that has to do with some of the things we put into place to support the program, like staff. Somehow, God's grace, miracles, we've been able to maintain positive financials. I mentioned we write now 15 or so grants, and that is, that's one of the main reasons. We get reimbursed through the USDA Summer Food Service Program for every meal served first. But that only covers about 60% of our costs. So we've got to make up the rest, and we do that with grants. So a lot of things, we try to keep pace with this growth and expansion and ability to meet programs. But one thing hasn't kept pace, and it's largely invisible. So I'm going to step back and give you a little perspective. Stuck. This is the ministry most people see. It is fantastic. an incredible feel-good ministry. We're talking about kids. We're talking about giving them food. We're talking about giving them books. What more could you want to warm the heart? It's here. It's not halfway around the world. It's not even over the bridge. It's here. And it's easy, hands-on, volunteer work that you can feel really good about your ability to contribute. It doesn't take much skill to come in and make a sun butter sandwich, or to cut grapes apart, or to fill up little cups with canned food. It doesn't take much skill to come in and put some stuff in bags, or to open bags, to fill coolers, to drive miles to sites. You can pick, I'm going to do it one day, I'm going to do it the same day every week, I'm going to do it these 2 weeks. We have a lot of seasonal people who just do it when they're here. Very easy to fit your schedule, very easy to feel good about your ability to contribute. We're using a space that might otherwise not be used within the church during the summer. And we're able to pay people very good salaries. Young people like the Thompsons, or people who really could use some extra money during the summer, like Laura and Marie. So we offer, you can't see anything that's challenging. But there's a whole other side that a very few of us see and experience. We're managing a big budget. We're running what is really a pretty complex and intense program that has year-round responsibilities. I can't tell you the number of people who came up to me in the office and said, wow, aren't you glad it's over? It's like, yeah, no, it is not over. There are lots of things that go on year one. It is highly regulated. I don't know if any of you have worked with a government agency, but the USDA Summer Food Service Program has lots of I's to dot, lots of T's to cross. And it's run through the Department of Education here in the state. And there's a little bit of antiquated approach to this. A lot of what we do is on paper. Files we have to keep to be on paper. And they're very specific about this is how things are done. And if you want to sort of really experience what it's like, come join me on October 25th when Desi will be here to audit everything we did this summer. We have commitments to 8 different towns, 12, 13, 14 different programs. One size does not fit all. They have their different wishes about time of day for meals, which meals, what day, what weeks they're going to be open, closed, whether they're going to take field trips. And oh, by the way, we thought we were going to take a field trip today, or not, or we didn't think we were going to take a field trip today, we will, and we sure like those meals by 7 o'clock, because we have to pick them up. So there are a lot of different variables going on that need to be juggled. Each of the town grants, we have a grant from each of the towns, they're all different. They all want different information. They all come in at a different time frame. Over the course of a year, we'll get them spread out, starting in June, going all the way through May. And the big one is that there are really some significant risks and responsibilities associated with running this program. We have to secure the funding. There's the health and safety of the children that are consuming our meals in the hot summer outside, and we're delivering from here all the way to Provincetown and back. And there's the safety of the staff and the volunteers who are lifting heavy coolers. They're working with things like slicers in the kitchen, or even just case cutters, opening up boxes and things. And so they're working with some potentially dangerous stuff. They're lifting heavy loads. I don't know if you've tried to lift one of these coolers, it's full of juice. I recommend you not do that. And we're driving. And this is probably the part that gives me the most angst every summer. We're filling the cars with heavy coolers. We're going out on the roads in the summertime on Cape Cod. And worried about the safety of the driver, worried about the safety of all the other drivers around our drive, going to and from sites. So there's a lot to be concerned about. Hence my expression in the bottom screen. So some of you remember Sandy Marshall. One of the reasons Sandy was so helpful in helping with some of the organizational things and other things, evaluations around here at the church, was that she, for her living, worked with the Alban Institute. The Alban Institute is an organization that helps churches figure out how to do things better, advises them on how to do things better. It's no longer the Alban Institute. It's now Alban at Duke University, Duke Divinity. Another organization is the Episcopal Church Foundation, which comes out of the Episcopal Church, and part of its role is to help, again, churches understand how to do things better. Well, it's just sort of coincidental that in the last couple of months, I've been reading a lot from these two organizations, and they talk about the need to match capabilities with your capacities. And so I kind of put together this diagram. When you think of capabilities as the width of the boxes, sort of how much you need, and the capacities as the list of different items within the box. What these two sources are telling us is that the two need to match. You need to be able to match your capacities and your capabilities. We know that the need is there. It's not going away. It might be increasing to some extent, and our community's ability to meet that need is increasing in terms of the larger community. One of the reasons behind the growth is that we're seeing a couple of our program partners morph from just a half-day program in the summer to a full-day program in the summer, trying to meet that childcare need for parents who need to work, who desperately need to be able to work during our high season when work is available. So even if the number of kids doesn't grow, the access to our program over time might be growing. This past summer, the little dotted lines suggest we stretched to meet. We made it. We did fine, but we had to stretch to meet that. We were using some space up here to store a lot of the extra snacks. We got a lot more volunteers in to help. And so we were able, we had something like, 45 drivers. So we had a lot of people come in to help, and we made it. And I will say that Anne Marie, who's really the guru behind the day-to-day operation, at least came across as feeling comfortable this summer. There were moments when she worried about, oh my gosh, more than 700 lunches today, or more than 800 snacks today. But she was also relieved to see the volunteers show up and the drivers show up and the support she needed to make it happen. So we stretched and we made it. Where I don't think we really made it as drivers. And it's more that we had so much going out. We ended up putting more in people's cars than we should have. And that's something we need to really back off on. As I said, one of my biggest concerns is safety of delivering these products on the roadways. Slam your brakes on, those things are heavy. Slam your brakes on, and there are two tiers. The top tier is going right through you and the windshield. We need to be much more diligent about how we approach delivery of the products to make sure it's safe for our drivers and safe for everybody else on the road. The last two boxes are the pieces that are invisible. The part that most people don't see because they're living up in the purple boxes. What I call management systems. It's how we get our funding. It's all the interactions with the summer food service program out of DESI and the compliance with their rules and regs. It's all the negotiation that goes back and forth with our partner sites up until the last minute the program starts and then throughout the summer. You want to have to do staff? Oh, wait, maybe I don't. Oh, wait, maybe we do. You have a list of field trips. Maybe I do, but I changed or it rained. Lots of different things going on from an administrative standpoint, making sure we have enough people on staff, making sure we have enough volunteers, working the systems whereby we recruit all these people, doing the marketing as required, doing the finance, doing the data analytics, making all that happen. And then you hope at some level, somebody's thinking big picture. Alden, ECF, anybody who's really tried to run an operation, whether it's within the church or outside the church, recognizes that if these are weak, if the bottom two boxes are weak, the ministry will not succeed long term. Brenda and I came on with a recognition that we needed to up the game a little bit. To strengthen some of this, to ensure that Ruth's dream would continue. I think here we are, several years out, recognizing that it's time for another reboot of the whole management systems and how we approach that. And we think the first step is some restructuring in how we approach divvying up the responsibilities for how the whole management takes place. There's lots of things that get done. There's the whole relationship with the Department of Education, and the relationship with our individual sites. That's the heart and soul of the program. There's the whole operations. Primarily that Anne Marie is overseeing on a day-to-day basis, getting the food materials and packing materials in, getting stuff made, getting it packed, getting it out the door. There's the personnel aspect of hiring staff, volunteers, organizing and recruiting and figuring out what to do when somebody doesn't show up to drive, or maybe you needed a few more people on the packing line that week, getting those folks in, doing the marketing and communication, which is both the online things that we do, the emails that we do, but it's also the signage that we put at sites, and it's the brochures that we hand out to families to let them know what's coming. It's writing all the grants, it's managing the finances, it's doing the data analytics. Right now, as I said, Anne Marie is primarily the one who knows about operations. In terms of personnel, it's mostly Brenda and to a certain extent Jack, who's on the steering committee. Volunteers, it's me, and with the help of Laura. Marketing and communications, it's me. Grants, it's me, with some help from Laura. Finance, it's me. Data analytics, it's me. And DESI and site relations, it's me with help from Laura. We need to diversify the leadership. And the main reason is if this was something that took place over the course of a year, and everything was pretty spread out, maybe not that much of a burden for any one individual, but it's not. A lot of overlapping deadlines and time constraints that happen to make it very challenging to do this. Not to mention, it's the summer on Cape Cod. And I look at every one of you, and my guess is most of you probably had house guests. most of you probably thought, wow, I can finally go outside. So there's a lot going on in our lives in addition to managing this. So our hope is to be able to create and diversify the leadership, to take on responsibilities and work more as a team to drive the program, to figure out how to make it work the best it can, and to encourage that move. I'm stepping back from almost everything that I do, except probably the numbers, because I really like numbers. So will the kind of changes we're talking about mean a different home? Brenda and I have sat down with the steering committee. They know about these conversations, this thought process. And we've sat down with the vestry. They do know about this thought process. We know our resources here at the church. And looking at will this structure fit who we are here? We're making no decisions at this point, but making sure that as we think about the future, that we're thinking about not only what's necessary, what's possible, what's realistic, what's doable. So we're actually looking at a lot of different possibilities. One, of course, is to keep it right here. One is to even potentially consider paying a director to take on the level of responsibility that's involved in running Food for Kids, and to keep it as a priority here. I don't know about you, but I know that at the end of every summer, the question always comes up, should we be our own 501c3? And I think what that really means is not should we become a 501c3, but is there another 501c3 in the area that might be better equipped to handle Food for Kids, to run the Food for Kids? They have established local outreach. Do they have the leadership and administration to do it? Could they potentially still rely on the physical plant here and the recruiting of volunteers here to actually make it happen? With that in mind, I had a conversation with Christine Menard at Family Pantry, and didn't specifically come out and say, oh, would you take Food for Kids on? But had a conversation about the reality of the administrative role that's involved here. And she was appreciative of what's involved and somewhat in awe of what we do. And incredibly helpful in naming some resources that we could turn to help, especially with the data analytics. But I read in her responses that they no more have the administrative heft to be able to run this. They do not have much unpaid staff. They rely also on volunteers. And their program is of a very different nature in terms of their needs for administration and other aspects. I don't know whether some of the other outreach ministries, Lower Cape Outreach, and those sorts of organizations would be equipped to take something like this on, but my guess is they have the same challenge that we have in terms of putting together that administrative role. Can we convince the schools to do it? Schools in larger parts of the state are the ones that are running the summer food service. But then I believe the Dennis Sherman School System runs it for those two towns. Our experience with COVID, however, would suggest that our schools are way spread out. They're small in terms of having, again, the administration to run it. And when we worked with NOSIT in COVID, it was very clear they were happy to make the meetings. They wanted to make the meals for all 8 towns in order to get sufficient scale. They wanted us to do all the administration, all of it. Including all interface with DESE, the Department of Education, all interface with our sites, all interface with volunteers, everything, all the financials. We funneled more than $1 million through us to them from DESE over the year and a half that we were involved with NASA. So again, do they have the administrative arm? And is there some other options? Do you have other ideas? Again, nobody's made any decisions at this point. But the critical thing is wherever Food for Kids is able to really meet the need of quality, affordable, and a sustainable program, or potentially face closure. My guess is there's not a person in this room, there's not a person who we are in partnership with in the towns that would want that to happen. And so we turn to what's next. As I mentioned, Brenda and I have sat with our steering committee, we've sat with the vestry, and been pretty open and honest with them. And I'm going to turn it over to Patrick at this point.
Do questions?
And Brenda. Because as I said, I'm stepping back.
Thank you, Ann. Before we went any further, there are our co-directors here, so I just wanted to give Brenda the opportunity to chime in before we take questions.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Ian. Thank you all for being here. And just your support for Food for Kids is overwhelming, as it was this summer, as I was trying to put pineapple tidbits in the little cups and get them out to all the kids. Yeah, when Ann and I took over from Ruth about 7 years ago, we started as very equal partners, kind of dividing up the tasks and sitting with a colleague that Ruth had worked with in Western Math. And we, immediately decided Ruth did way too much. We need to hire some staff. And then we started out very well. We've done reorganization before. I can remember a few years back at my dining room table, and Mary Ann Bragdon was on the steering committee then, and she was very instrumental in helping us delineate all of the tasks. But then COVID came along, and we've grown so much that we're at another crossroads. I'd love to say, oh, I could just step in and do it all, but I don't think I can. I think I've got, many, as time has passed, I've taken on a lot more responsibility here at church. And I think we're right for an executive director of some sort to take on, these major tasks, certainly dealing with DESE and maybe some of the data that we have to accumulate and report. But I do think there's also room for those of us whose hearts, just we have such a heart for Food for Kids that we do take on, some bigger pieces of it and support whomever we decide to lead us. And I just want to say thank you for grateful for all the support in the kitchen. It was the best thing was being here every day and meeting all of the volunteers. I had a better picture than I've had in years of all of the people who make this such a success. Thank you.
Take questions. I just want to offer a few of my own thoughts in case you're curious. I've spent a lot of time with Ann's presentation and listening to both Ann and Brenda and responses from our vestry. For one thing, I want you to remember that this program is a tremendous triumph as it is. It's an astounding accomplishment, and the history is an amazing story. Personally, I'm open to and acknowledge that any single one of those options that Ann just shared with you could happen. It is often the case that a church begins a ministry, and the need is so great that the ministry outgrows the bandwidth of church. This happened at Trinity Coffee Square, which now has an independent 501c3, the Trinity Boston Foundation, because the church staff itself could not continue as a religious ministry to do the summer programming and all the other activities that that church had taken on at that point. So I want to emphasize the fact that none of those options is a failure, but could be an evolutionary step for us. And I think that's an important thing to consider. Churches don't often do a very good job of ending or even transitioning ministries without feeling like we've done something wrong. So I want you to bear that in mind through the months to come as we discern and make some changes. The challenge, of course, is that summer, like Sundays, is always coming at us. All right, we have the summer of 2024 meeting. We'll be missing a key team member. And we need to determine what shape this ministry will take for us, or if it will cease to be simply a ministry of our church, but an effort that is supported by people who are outside of our church. Those are all things we need to consider. You know, the first column that Anne showed us sort of predicated on the notion of a full-time director on the staff of our church, which is something that I'm willing to explore. I think I sometimes drag my feet when I'm not ready to do something, and many of you have noticed that I dragged my feet on hiring an assistant minister. I think this is one of the reasons I've sensed that things are a little up in the air, and I wanted some time to look at all of our operations to figure out how could a person fit in here in the most valuable way. Could we, and I've asked your treasurer, Chris Crichton, and Ann to work together, is there a possibility, could one possibility be structuring a full-time job for the assistant here that would include some managerial oversight of Food4Kids? That would be, I promise you, a very difficult hire. Finding a person with the profile that's both clerical and business is a challenge, but not impossible. So that's one way. The other possibility is keeping both of those positions half-time or part-time. So everything's kind of on the table. Personally, I'm feeling some sense of urgency here because, as I said, you know, if you're a clergy person, you know, Sunday's always coming at you. And Food4Kids, with the Food4Kids team, summer is always coming at us. The great news is that most of the staff have re-upped for next summer, which is terrific. But we have a lot of thinking to do, and your investors are already engaged with that. So I just want to share a little bit of my here. I'm not afraid of any one of those options. All of them are on the table. And we just need to be honest with each other as far as what we feel we can do. So thank you. We will take questions if anyone has them, and you have two experts here, and we'd love to hear you. Ruth, and we do have a mic, so you know I'll run that. Ruth, I think this is pretty sensitive, so you can kind of hold it just.
All right, well, since no one had a question, I thought I would just make a comment. Some sponsorships in the state don't survive. Because if they only get the reimbursement money, they have to cut corners in every possible way, including giving pretty cheap food to the kids, which is a tragedy. And our gang here has figured out how to solve that. But one of the things I learned doing this program was that there's a wonderful man called Jesus who sits on every cooler as it leaves this church. And you talk about the Jesus movement, miracle after miracle. And I don't want to sound like a Pollyanna. They are so deep, the miracles that happen to solve the issues that came up time and time again, including the day Ann and Brenda looked at me and said, we'll do it. After looking for a year to find someone. So I think that's what makes our program especially dynamic across the state, is that we have faith, the leadership has faith that we're doing the right thing and is able to be strong in facing some of the challenges which come up. And I like that picture of Jesus sitting on the coolers. Thank you.
Maybe that's why they're so happy. But that is a point that's important to remember, you know. The reason people do ministry is sometimes invisible. So we have a lot of people from different religious faith backgrounds or no particular faith who come here and do this work, and we would not be able to offer Food for Kids without them. I think in the same way, if Food for Kids was to migrate to another nonprofit, I see your hand, Brian, in just a moment. Yeah, we'll get to you. I think in the same way, if sorry, I lost my train of thought. You migrate. If this was to migrate to a secular organization, we could still be exercising ministry as volunteers from our church in the service of that organization. Do you follow me? So there's different ways to consider this. I will say that, as Anne and Brenda have articulated it, the problem is not only money, and I need you to bear this in mind. It's about expertise, and it's about the labor pool and the pool of expertise we have around us, and who is willing to offer their skills in this particular way. So big set of considerations. Someone over here, Jay. And I am going to note the lateness of the time, so we need to end in about 5 minutes or so from today.
This concerns the operation. I was curious to know if you always have the same number of students in each town in the summer program. And I can't imagine you do, but is there any way, I mean, do each town call you in and say we need 20, 30 lunches? That's one question. And the second question is it possible to get the churches in Orleans to get involved in this program, the Federation and the Methodist?
I'll answer the second question first. The Federated Church is very much involved. They help fund us every year. And although I don't know church membership behind the volunteers, I'm sure that they're coming out of the Catholic Church and the Methodist Church because it's that religious community, that church-based community around here is well aware of the program and has been very supportive of it. So especially in helping expand our volunteer base. As for the towns and the scale of each town, it actually varies somewhat depending upon what's going on with the recreation programs that particular summer. I think for this last summer, although there's significant growth, we actually had several towns that have pretty much stabilized. Orleans is relatively stable. Chatham, Provincetown, Eastham, relatively stable. Where we've had some significant change is Brewster. We had trouble getting into Brewster because it wouldn't qualify for years. We had a pretty small presence there. We finally got connected with the REC program. The area qualified for us. And it took the REC program a couple of years to get it. And this year they got it in terms of helping us make available the lunch to more kids within their program. And then Truro initially under Ruth was huge. And for a couple of years it was huge. And then their program went under administrative change and shrank significantly. And then this year it's got a new person in charge, and suddenly it's blossoming again in terms of the number of kids. that they're welcoming into the program. The other big shift is whether a program goes from just being a morning program to being all day. And whether a morning program shifts from being only 6 weeks long to maybe being 7 or 8 weeks long. All that figuring out, Laura and I do with the sites starting in February. And we won't know until the day they start what the final numbers are. And even then, on a day-to-day basis, it will change. Depending, these are outdoor programs. And it depends on their ability to hire staff. And their ability to have their own resources available. So it does vary from summer to summer.
I will say that adding another church into the fold, I want to emphasize the challenges for having our managerial. So to add another church organization into this, I think would actually increase the managerial demand. So we need to proceed cautiously. To Ann's earlier point, we don't have a lack of volunteers, certainly, but it's the hidden oversight of this effort that is where we're asking the sustainability questions. So if there's expertise at the managerial level within those churches that could help, that would be something we'd look at, but it's more than a matter of other church volunteers or more bodies. Right?
Looking for the volunteers.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more question, and Jenny Clarendon has her hand raised. So Jenny, I'm going to bring this microphone to you. No, please don't strain it.
Would our own diocese help us find the proper managerial help, personnel in this wonderful ministry?
That's a possibility. We are getting some assistance, a $10,000 grant from the diocese. Sorry about this feedback. Already. I will tell you from my own perspective, working with the diocese, they're looking at a lot of their own managerial challenges. It is very hard to find people to do work when the cost of living in a particular area is exorbitant. So I do have some knowledge of 138 Tremont Street and what's going on there now. So it's a good thought, Jenny. It's certainly a route that we'll explore. Yeah. Well, we haven't taken this present.
We have not yet taken this presentation to the diocese. That would not be fair because we wanted to share it with you first. However, I'm happy to share this with the diocese. And I think whenever you share something with a parish, you always assume it is public at this point. So we are and have opted to be fully transparent with you about this view under the hood of Food for Kids. So yes, we will engage with the diocese. I'm going to personally say I'm not going to bet the program on assistance we will get from the diocese, but it is our due diligence. Thank you. And thank you all for being with us today. I don't mean to end, but we are beyond the time that we had committed. So the good news is none of us are going anywhere. I'd like you to think deeply about what Ann and Brenda have shared with you today. Your vestry is on top of the situation and are current with this presentation. And there are their pictures right there. That is your leadership. So whatever we discern, we're going to discern and execute together. So don't be shy. And we're looking forward to continuing the conversation with you. Thanks, everybody.
Hey. You owe me something. I sent you an email a week ago, and you owe me a yes or no on the roof cleaning. Don't you ever look at your email?
Whatever, I saw it there and then
You need to let me know, is it okay to proceed? You
Yes,
okay.
yes, yes.
Everybody says yes, except you and I just need to,
Yes.
okay.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I-
Fine, how are
I
you?
don't
I'm
need to-
Vincent.
I send you emails and then I never hear
You
it.
know what it is,
Yeah.
it's just like, for example, I didn't get, I used to
Oh, just
keep track of it.
someone sent
I
a
didn't
question
get
right at
much.
the end, so I want to make sure that I get
And
that
Ginny
question.
just got me one today.
Okay.
And I know, it's crazy, almost every piece of letter that comes into the mailbox,
Right,
I write down and
Okay.
open it up
All right.
and throw it away.
all right,
And so I go, gee, today, when
you got it, and
I got it.
I know you got it, I know it was mailed to you, Brenda, because I'm on the spiritual committee, and we filled them all out. You know, your name came up, and it's like,
Well, I get my
but you're lucky because people love you.
No, they don't, they want money.
Hey, my wife,
They want money.
that's all right.
It's crazy.
So
Yeah,
I've got
exactly.
Peter, planned spring,
Oh, should
another
I?
80 of the Fairberry.
No, I was writing a question, but it says,
Give us all the ground.
I'm trying to end it.
I'm gonna do that as well.
How many people are on?
March.
10.
Nice. Okay.
I don't know.
Anyway, good